In this video essay, I want to discuss how weight, dieting, and eating disorders are depicted in K-dramas. Specifically, I want to track how it changed over time, starting in the mid-2010s up until now. We will be looking at 4 popular Korean TV shows in chronological order to track the development. How is weight loss depicted? Are eating disorders portrayed realistically and with compassion? Make sure to stay until the end of the video so we can discuss one horrible trope that every K-drama on this list is guilty of. And let me know in the comments if you noticed it too. Oh My Venus is a 2015 K-drama about a smart and dedicated lawyer that everyone considers a giant loser because she's no longer the same weight that she was as a teenager. Jo-eun has an underactive thyroid gland, which is why she can't lose weight easily, so she starts taking medication and working out with a personal trainer who later becomes her boyfriend. This K-drama constantly emphasizes that healthy is sexy and losing weight is important for your health, but it is not what is shown. The male lead pushes Jo-eun to work out without any rest days and only allows her to eat salad, low-fat yogurt, and tiny pieces of unseasoned lean meat. She starts hearing her inner dialogue that tells her to not eat in his voice. The female lead is daydreaming about real food and she's constantly hungry. Her diet is extremely restrictive and she rapidly loses a lot of weight. It is not super clear how long it took her, but she starts dieting when everyone is wearing light jackets and becomes much smaller by the time they wear puffy winter coats, so to me it looks like maybe a couple of months? They do mention how much exactly she lost, and it should have taken her at least 1 year or more to reach that goal in a sustainable way. And of course, she gains all of the weight back and then some within 1 month when she gets pregnant and starts eating again. And this is her boyfriend's face when he finds out that they're having a baby they've been trying for. He's more interested in her weight than the baby and immediately wants her to work out and diet. The male lead constantly talks about her body in a negative way, calls her a beast and tells her she needs to be thinner, even after she reaches her goal weight. John Kim also mentions that her hypothyroidism is absolutely her own fault and she did it to herself. I'm not a doctor, but from what I understand, that is not how thyroid works. He also physically drags her to a weight loss clinic, which she doesn't seem to consent to. He keeps repeating that her body belongs to him and she's not allowed to say no, and this attitude stays when they start dating. This K-drama pretends like there are only 2 ways to eat. Either you binge greasy fast food or you starve yourself with a bit of salad with no other options in between. Soo-jin, who used to be the main character's designated fat friend, also loses an extreme amount of weight. It is implied that she has been on a restrictive diet for years and constantly skips meals. She is sad and depressed and has fertility issues, which are a result of her extreme weight loss. But this K-drama doesn't really comment on her eating disorder. The way to get a man in this K-drama is by being skinny. Both Jo-eun and Soo-jin are motivated to lose weight for revenge, to rub it into other people's faces. I am not buying the whole losing weight for health argument that this plot insists on. To my huge disappointment, Oh My Venus has an Herbalife product placement, which is a company that is famous for being a pyramid scheme. Not only does this K-drama promote extreme dieting as if it was healthy, but they also took a sponsorship from a scammy product. The use of fat suits in this K-drama is also worth mentioning. Like most fat suits, they look very unrealistic and inconsistent in every scene. Several online articles claim that they supposedly spent 200 million won on Shin Mina's prosthetics and makeup, which required 3 hours and 8 people to put on for filming. Oh My Venus often gets recommended as a classic rom-com, but I think people who still like it are just nostalgic for 2015. This K-drama is quite problematic and very clearly a product of its time. Moving on to 2016. That's when we get weightlifting fairy Kim Bok-joo, a popular rom-com about students at a sports university. The main character is a weightlifter who is supposed to be the strongest athlete on her team, but she is played by a tall and skinny actress who has no muscle and has to wear padding to look bigger. The weightlifters eat a lot and often discuss ways to eat more without feeling full. There are several scenes in which the trainer forces Bok-joo to eat past the point she is comfortable with, which is really hard to watch. We see them eat big portions, which is contrasted against the gymnasts, who also have to watch their weight just in a different way. They are framed as the hangry mean girls. The gymnasts are constantly weighed and scolded for gaining even the tiniest amounts. In one episode, their trainer says that they are not allowed to go home until they weigh less. They barely eat, constantly watch food shows on TV, and even try to break the scale at night. The antagonist in this K-drama is the male lead's ex-girlfriend. Shio is under immense amount of stress. She has to be perfect to get on the national team, and feels a lot of pressure from her mom, who sold the house to support her failing gymnastics career. We see her binge every time she is upset. She's depressed, has stomach pain, and even faints and wakes up in the hospital a couple of times. Shio is not doing well. After she begins taking sleeping pills, she starts sleepwalking and binge eating at night, without realizing it. It is also mentioned that she no longer has her period. When Bok-joo finds her unconscious on the floor, she's taken to a hospital where a doctor reveals that she has anorexia and bulimia. This K-drama acknowledges that she needs help from a psychiatrist, and that eating disorders are a complex mental illness, but recovery is depicted like a sudden switch. She turns from a depressed mess into a relaxed and wise woman after a few days in the hospital. In the first couple of episodes, Bok-joo goes to a diet clinic because she has a crush on the doctor. He tells her that she is overweight, which she clearly isn't, and charges her a lot of money for a consult. Her trainer and her dad are upset about it, but I feel like this K-drama doesn't critically unpack her behavior around food, in the same way it does with Shio. One of my biggest pet peeves in this story is the nickname the male lead gives to the main character. In Korean, he calls her Tong, which means fat. Depending on where you watched this K-drama, it might have been translated as fatty or chubs. Bok-joo hates it and asks him to stop multiple times. People always mention this K-drama because of how amazing the male lead is, but he teases Bok-joo for her weight so much. Overall, this K-drama talks about food and disordered eating in a much more nuanced way, but there is a lot of space for improvement. My ID's Gangnam Beauty from 2016 probably has the most complex and realistic depiction of a character with an eating disorder in any K-drama. Soa is the manipulative villain who can't stand not being the center of attention for even a second. She needs to be the popular pretty girl and nobody else is allowed to get compliments. She tries to break up every couple by sabotaging them, even though she has zero interest in any of these guys. Soa lies to her classmates, pretending like she has rich parents and lives in a fancy apartment. She doesn't let anyone see her real self. She's an absolutely hateable character. Her lies start falling apart when classmates overhear her throwing up after lunch. She's confronted, and everyone finds out that she's a liar and a manipulator. Soa always said that she never gains weight no matter how much she eats, which everyone is envious of, while in reality she's bulimic. This K-drama does a really good job portraying the inherent loneliness and misery of an eating disorder. Soa is often shown home alone, suffering in silence. This is also when the stalking starts. Someone has been secretly taking pictures of her and putting them online. She is rightfully upset and increasingly paranoid. It culminates in a confrontation with the stalker, who throws a liquid into her face as revenge for leading him on. Luckily, it was just water. The main characters arrive in time and catch the culprit and save Soa. When she ends up in the hospital, we see her open up to a counselor, and she starts unpacking her problems. Therapy is not painted as a quick and easy solution, it is a long journey. Swa takes a leave of absence from university and gets the help she needs. She reaches out to the main characters in the last episode to apologize. She has clearly spent her time working through her issues in therapy. In a flashback scene, we get to see her backstory. This character grew up in a dysfunctional family, abandoned by her mom and bullied for her unkempt appearance. In middle school, she starts getting positive attention from her mom and her classmates for appearing clean and pretty. Swa learns early that she has to be effortlessly perfect. Just the right amount of feminine, humble, and never seem too smart. In this K-drama, bulimia is depicted as a complex and self-destructive mental illness that stems from a traumatic childhood, and it is not reduced to a discussion of weight. Mire, the main character, also has some questionable behavior around food. She used to be fat as a kid and lost overweight by dieting and exercising. She says herself that she was determined and never gained any of it back, but later reveals to the audience that she used to throw up too after she finds out that Swa is bulimic. She's also weird about eating in front of her boyfriend, which he treats with respect. The show never really unpacks her relationship with food. One last nitpick I have with this K-drama is the diet pill product placement. I think it is unethical and irresponsible to advertise weight loss products in a TV show about eating disorders and toxic beauty standards. Tomorrow is a 2022 K-drama about a team of well-dressed Grim Reapers who stop people from ending their lives. Each episode explores a different topic with new characters who need help. And episode 7 deals with bulimia. The story starts out very strong. Because of a computer virus, the protagonists don't know exactly who they're supposed to help. The only information they have is where that person works, and they're able to narrow it down to a couple of people. The team and the viewers are supposed to notice little details and clues to figure out which one of the characters is depressed. I think this is a smart plot twist. It trains the audience to pay attention to warning signs and reach out to people around them. The team infiltrates the company by getting a job interview. Lookism is a standard practice when applying for a job in Korea, and this K-drama critically comments on the topic. The female lead gets invasive questions about her weight in the job interview, and the characters are rightfully upset about it. In the office, there is a lot of fat shaming, but the male lead and the recipient of these comments immediately call the manager out. There's a character in a bigger body who eats a lot, but she's not the one who needs help. This is who we were looking for. At a team dinner, she's not eating, she's just cutting her food into tiny pieces while talking non-stop, which the female lead catches on to. We also see the scar, which is a detail no other K-drama showed before. She's home alone at night, body checking and crying in the bathroom after throwing out. We get an insight into her mind and how paranoid she is, and get her backstory of being bullied as a child and see how she became bulimic. When the character is at her breaking point, the male lead manages to save her in the last moment and brings her to the hospital. And this is where the story falls flat. He approaches her with a lot of compassion and tries to understand the situation. But the plot makes her eating disorder purely about the looks. He changes her perspective by telling her to love herself. Groundbreaking advice. This K-drama was so close to getting it right. The ending can be fixed with just a few tiny changes. First, they should not have inserted the useless story about the sister who gained weight, and they should not have used that horrible fat suit. Second, there is zero mention of therapy as a solution. They could have inserted one scene with a psychiatrist and some throwaway exposition line about how she has a very long way ahead of her in therapy. Also, they cure the eating disorder with a piece of cheesecake. According to the plot, she has been bulimic for at least 15 years. It is not a matter of eating a cake once, which she probably cannot digest anyway. She has to have a lot of gastrointestinal problems by that point, that require serious medical intervention. This character has a heart-to-heart talk with a colleague who explains why eating food is not a crime. I expected this K-drama to make it the moral of the story that being overweight is bad too, but they didn't. She is unapologetic about her weight. Tomorrow is the first K-drama that lets a woman in a bigger body eat food without guilt and love herself the way she is. The characters that are fat-shaming her are very clearly framed as being wrong. No other K-drama has discussed weight like this before. Unfortunately, it felt anticlimactic that the main character punishes the sexist manager by giving him a diarrhea curse for whenever he says something offensive. This felt tone deaf in an episode about eating disorders. The writers of this K-drama had good intentions, but the plot resolution was underwhelming. There is one aspect of eating disorder representation that every K-drama on this list does, and this is my biggest criticism. Only the villains have an eating disorder. This trope divides women into two categories: an evil woman who has no self-control, and a morally superior main character, who is either effortlessly slim or she was just more determined. What kind of message does this send to viewers with eating disorders? In a lot of these TV shows, both the protagonist and the antagonist display disordered eating, but it is framed differently. In Oh My Venus, both the female lead and the antagonist lose weight through extreme dieting, but the main character's weight loss is framed as healthy and the villain's diet has consequences on her fertility. In Weightlifting Fairy, the evil ex-girlfriend gets diagnosed with an eating disorder, even though the main character also displays some questionable behavior around food. She gets the man and a spot on the national team, while Xiao gets health complications and quits sports. My Id's Gangnam Beauty does the same thing. The manipulative antagonist has an eating disorder and needs to get therapy, even though the female lead herself also used to throw up, but she just stopped. In Tomorrow, the side character is bulimic, and the female lead mentions that she just always looked slim, she's not doing anything special. Why is a diagnosis and therapy just for villains? None of the sympathetic, morally good characters go to therapy or get health consequences from dieting. And this is not how eating disorders work. That is an extremely damaging trope that needs to go away. Overall, I think eating disorder representation got much more nuanced and compassionate with time. We went from controlling boyfriends who call their girlfriends fat, to male leads who stand up against body shaming. There are also a couple of short web series that try to handle this topic, but depicted it in such a nonsensical way that it is hard to break down why it's bad. The classic full-length 16-episode format is suited better to explore such a complex subject.